Well, Australian politics has felt a seismic shift lately with the rise of One Nation. Today, a new poll puts One Nation in front of Labor and the Coalition in Victoria. Pauline Hanson's party recorded a primary vote of 27%, with the other two parties tied on 26%. With the party being a serious contender to hold government after the next federal election, the policies being put forward, they're extremely important. And that's why I've asked Senator Hanson to join me to focus on her media policies. Pauline Hanson, welcome to McKnight Tonight.
Hello, Rob. Thank you for having me on.
Look, it's Tipsy Thursday here, so congratulations. Do you feel like the belle of the ball at the moment? It's been a stunning turnaround for One Nation.
Look, it has been. It's been exciting to watch, and the support that I'm receiving from the Australian people by all means, and especially in Victoria leading into the election, which is about 5 months away, where we haven't announced candidates or a leader or, for that matter, policy, although we have one upper house member in the state. But to see the support that we're getting there, it's an indication that people are just turned off from the major political parties. They want change, and they're looking at One Nation. And that can only be coming from myself and my colleagues in the federal parliament, although we do have state members of parliament, South Australia and Western Australia, and we just won our seat in Farrer, which is the first lower house One Nation seat in the parliament and lower house here federally. So it's clear indication people have had enough of the major political parties. They want change.
That's absolutely true. And by the way, thank you for holding the phone because we couldn't set it up properly. So I appreciate that.
Right.
Speaking of state leaders and the like, the polls are showing you could form government. Will you be in a position to field enough candidates? And do you have any ideas as far as a possible Victorian state leader?
Look, we will be fielding a Victorian state leader, and we are putting candidates in every seat. We've had about 1,200 expressions of interest for people to be candidates in Victoria. We're going through the vetting process, and those people are being endorsed for the seats and will be announced in time. So, yes, we are. Look, if you really have a good look at what you've got now and what the government has been doing with you, do you really have confidence in your current crop of politicians? The Liberal Party are in disarray down there. Just recently again with Moira Deeming. Then one of the candidates they selected, then they had to get rid of him. So don't criticise One Nation. It comes down to the people that we have. Their background in, local business or business people themselves, they've employed staff. The politics of it is that you have the public service departments, you have them there. It's about putting out to the legislation, you put the policies forward, and then you go to the public service, right, this is our policies, start implementing them. And it comes from clear direction. It's like if you've got someone who comes in as the CEO of a company, they then say, okay, this is where we're headed now, this is how we're going to drive this company, and this is our procedure. And it's no different in, politics as well. We'll hit the ground running because, like I said, what have you got now? Look at the state.
I think this is.
Look at the state of it.
I think you're absolutely right. You are surging because people are over it. They've got issues with Labor. They don't feel confident in the Liberal Party. You seem to be connecting in a way. It's interesting what's happened with you because you, in the early days, had a connection. Then you've been doing your own thing, but you are now getting polling that suggests you could form government. This is amazing, Pauline.
It is amazing, Rob. And look, I don't disregard the responsibility of what I'm taking on. That's why the person that I will put up to lead the party, will actually in Victoria is going to, have that experience and knowledge. I want someone there that can lead the party in Victoria. But people are looking at our policies. What are we going to do for the state? Unless you start reining in the extended public service that is out of control, taxpayers' dollars going to it, you've got so much corruption in that state with the union movement, which I've just spoke about on the floor of Parliament. They're trying to implement it here in the federal parliament as well by giving only union sites the right to actually go for procurement of government jobs, only if it's a union site. I think it's wrong. And
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. You mentioned Moira Deeming. At one point, One Nation was talking about her coming on board when she was disendorsed the first time by the Libs. She went back to them. It
Correct.
looks like she's going to be disendorsed again. Would you welcome her to One Nation?
No, I don't want a bar of her. I'll now say that sincerely. Moira Deeming, made a comment with regards to Matthew Guy. I think it's Matthew, isn't it? Matthew Guy.
Yes.
And, it was proven that it was wrong. She should have apologised to him, and she didn't. That tells me the character of the person. If you're wrong, you don't throw your teammates under the bus. I'm forever standing up for people, my teammates. If they've done the wrong thing, I will call it out. But you don't throw your teammates under the bus. And she's done exactly that to the Liberal Party by these false allegations. She's been called out, and it wasn't the truth. No charges have been laid, but she refuses to apologise.
Do you feel like, and I will get to the media questions in a moment, I promise you. Do you feel like a lot of people are trying to jump on the One Nation bandwagon?
They're trying to jump on the One Nation bandwagon. I think it made quite clear. I don't intend to have people run for this party who see they're opportunists, and they can see they're possibly going to lose their seats. And I will look at their track record. If they're not in line with our policies, what we have, what we stand up for, our principles, morals, and fighting for the Australian people and want change here, if they've been part of the problem, why would I take them on if they've been part of the problem?
And that's my point, Pauline.
I've got too many great Australians that want to stand for One Nation. Why would I take on these ones that have destroyed the nation?
That's my point. I think there's a lot of, politics. They can see the winds of change. Look, whatever these polls translate into the next elections, whether it's state election in Victoria or the federal election in a couple of years, there's no doubt there is a groundswell behind you. And my sources have told me the local branches are being inundated with new members. But I did want to raise one thing with you. They're pushing back against this digital ID process that members are being asked to use. I hear there's been some criticism. What can you tell me about the facial ID technology being used?
Yeah, it's that people come on board, and especially if they are in authority, sort of branch coordinator or a position in the branch, we want to ensure that that is the person, that's their name, that's their identity, you show your driver's license or some identity. Anyway, there's people saying, oh no, we don't want to, you're going to use it. But any digital identity that's sent through to us, it's only to verify that is the person. It's not stored. We don't store it. We actually destroy it. We get rid of it. But, I understand there was one person who refused to do it. And I said, okay, we'll get around this and send a photo ID signed by JP, that is you, just to verify it. Because we don't want people saying there is someone and they're not actually that person. Because that'll come back to, and I'm sure the media won't let me get away with it and say, how could you let this person slip through the cracks? Everything that I have to do, Rob, is to ensure that I am under so much scrutiny at the moment. It is unbelievable. And other members, staffers who worked in other political offices, they've said, we have never, ever, ever seen anything like this. The scrutiny of One Nation, everything that I do, all the FOIs, where I go, where I travel, what car I get, this is all under scrutiny all the time, that I'm under the pressure.
That brings us to the media. So you are One Nation, and the more your popularity rises, isn't there an expectation that there will be more scrutiny on the party, because you could be the Prime Minister?
Look, there always has been, but it's getting worse now because it's starting to hit home with the major political parties. And so they're making these allegations, stupid statements that's coming out of their mouths. It's just absolutely ridiculous. And just Senator Price, I just read the article where she's saying, oh, it's a dynasty and I'm handing down to my daughter. That's a load of rubbish. My daughter is not even a member of Parliament. And as I've said in an interview that I did yesterday, they said, is your daughter going to take on the leadership? And I said, no. I said, there's nothing in that. I said, my daughter is not even a member of Parliament. She's got to get herself elected first. Then she's got to prove herself. Just because she's my daughter doesn't mean she's going to take over the leadership. And I said, she's got to prove herself, and that will take time to do it, and her abilities. And then on top of that, it has to be supported by the other colleagues in this place, plus also the membership. So that's a load of rubbish to head down that path all the time. It's criticism to say how I run the party. And I'll tell you something, Rob, not one of my members of parliament have ever challenged me for the leadership. So
Well,
that's just
Pauline,
rubbish.
would they dare?
So there you go. They've never challenged me for it. So what's your problem?
That would be a very brave person. Sorry, that would be a very brave person who challenged you.
No.
As you hold up a
them,
phone for
who wants
15 minutes doing this interview, lest we forget. Now, look, Channel 9, you had that interaction, that bizarre interaction. And look, I tend to judge people. I always say I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm just McKnight, right? So I treat everyone fairly. Now, you had that Channel 9 journo make a big deal about Gina and the private jet and everything like that. But
yeah,
but there was a recent Essential poll, just came out a day or so ago, that 30% of those polls did express concern about the backing you received from Gina Rinehart, and the claim in this poll is that she has strong links to Trump and the MAGA movement. What can you say to reassure people? Are you trying to be like Trump? Or are you trying to be your own identity? What would you say to people that are worried about that?
Excuse me, I've been around for 30 years. I was on the political scene long before Trump. Trump's following my lead, my policies, because I've been consistent with what I've been saying for the past 30 years. So wake up to yourselves, for Christ's sake. You know, I'm a person that I'll call it out and say it. I've been consistent in my message. Nothing's changed. You think just because Gina Rinehart or anyone else that gives me backing and support is going to have a hand up my back, pulling my strings? No one will, because I've been doing this for a long time. I'm consistent. I am very patriotic. I want to do what I can for the Australian people to give them a decent standard of living and quality of life. Gina Rinehart raises issues with me, as every other Australian out there that pulls me up when I'm doing my shopping in the supermarket, on the streets or whatever, and gives me clear indication of policies, what is important to them. And I listen to each and every one of them. It doesn't matter whether you're a billionaire or whether you're a person on the bones of your backside. You know, I think everyone's important to listen to what they have to offer. And it's quite amazing that I've got my policies from a lot of these people over the years.
It's funny. I'll get in trouble for laughing. You are very charismatic, Pauline, and you've made me laugh. Okay, I'm keen to get you on. I was keen to get you on to talk about your media policies. Let's talk about SBS. Now, I've come under fire for supporting your idea to axe it. I had never thought about axing SBS, but when I saw what you said at the National Press Club, I did sit and think, well, hang on, it's not doing what it was originally there to do, which was integrate immigrants into our culture and our country and provide them with a slice of home. You can do that anywhere now on the internet. Why is it important for you? Is it just a cost saving to get rid of SBS, or is it more to do with your politics?
No, a lot of it's got to do with the cost saving. And look, the budget is somewhere between $300 to $400 million. And that's a lot of money for the taxpayer. It was brought in the 1970s, I believe, and that was for people coming out here to allow them to connect back with their cultural backgrounds. That can all be done on internet, YouTube, anything else that they can connect up with. We've moved a long way since then, 50 years ahead on from there. Rob, tough decisions have to be made. Let me just explain to the people, we're in $1 trillion debt. That's $1,000 billion debt. And we're paying $50 billion a year in interest alone. And if we do not start cutting in areas, then we will not be able to provide the services to the aged, to the needy, people who are sick. Those people need that care, our hospitals, our infrastructure, our health, everything. So I've got to look at what is most important to people. Do you want to watch a program on TV that you can watch on some other channel, or do you want decent elective health surgery, which is going to give you quality of life and health? Do you want decent education for your children in schoolrooms? People, you really need to think about this and what your priority is.
Yeah, and I think that's very acceptable. It's become an entertainment channel, and I support you on that. Where I get a little bit worried is the ABC. The ABC has so many problems. I agree with you on that. They lie. I've been lied to by the
Yeah.
ABC. There is a culture problem. I'm unsure, though, how it would work splitting it up into metro and regional, because I agree with you that the regional areas need to be serviced by the ABC, and there is an argument about what you're saying with the metro areas. But how would that work, splitting it up?
Well, that would work. You keep your ABC radio and news stations because that's very beneficial to these rural and remote areas where you don't get commercial coverage at all. So I think it's very important. And I've always done that and I support it. And under the coalition government, I ensured that these rural and regional areas were funded to keep them going. And it wasn't just the ABC. So that's very important to keep that going. When you have these other shows, I'll talk about, okay, Q&A. That was once a very successful program. Where's it gone now? It was taken off because of lack of viewership and it went down its ratings. People are fed up with the bias
Well,
of
it went
these ones
woke.
in the ABC. They did. They've gone extremely woke. They're not upfront and telling the critical thinking or being factual with it. They're all leaning. They hate One Nation. They can't stand me. And that's, I'm part of this political process. So what I say to them, you're paid and funded by the taxpayers. Taxpayers from all political persuasions, backgrounds, uh, religious beliefs, and all the rest of it. You should have a fair and balance, and that's what I tried to get the coalition government to deal with this. Mitch Fifield, who was the minister at the time, to put in the charter. They forced to put in the charter fair and balance. Never happened. They never followed through. And they're all beholding and scared of the ABC because of what they might come out and say. For Christ's sake, take the bull by the horns and call it out for what it is. Taxpayers have to have a right to have a balanced program that they're paying for, and if they're not delivering, then they shouldn't be there.
So rather than getting rid of it, is it not a case of getting someone better in to run it? Like there are people like me who believe in a better ABC. I do think it serves some form of purpose, but I think it's a culture problem rather than what it's capable of doing.
It is a culture problem, but you've got $1.3 billion that's funded to them, right? So that's a hell of a lot of money too, Rob. So if
Sure.
it's not being supported by the Australian taxpayer, why not put it to subscription service? So, okay, you go out there and you have to sell, you have to get TV advertising, and you actually fund yourselves. If you think you're doing a good job, why wouldn't they want to put it to subscription? Put it to
Would
the
you
text.
allow ads?
Of course I would. Why wouldn't you?
Well,
Let them go to subscription and put out ads.
I
Why wouldn't
think
you do
the
that to
issue
fund
there
it?
would be there are other media companies who are struggling at the moment that would certainly arc up if the ABC started fighting for its advertising.
Yeah, but then Rob, why should they be treated differently to anyone else? Either you're producing a product that people want to watch. Why should the taxpayer be paying for something that they're not watching? And more people are turning off from it. So it's either it's the same as politics. If I don't deliver for the Australian people, they don't want me around. They won't vote for me. Why am I any different to the ABC?
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. You said something a moment ago that just prompted in my head the ridiculous situation you had with Jessica Rowe, who worked for me on Studio 10. You did an interview with her, and she came under enormous pressure. Now, and good on you, you went on a podcast with, God love her, a
Oh,
darling lefty, right? She can't get more left, and
yeah.
she got hammered by the left for this idea of platforming you. Now, where is the freedom of, and she took it down, which I think was a mistake, but what is the issue with her talking to a member of parliament?
Well, that's exactly right. And that's what's happening. And that's happened with Karl Stefanovic and also with Karl Sandilands, because they actually were a program that is more to conservative side. And then they get ridiculed because you have the witches come in and then destroy the advertising for it. And this campaign starts. This is what's happened in Australia. And, people have got backlashes. I went on Sarah Ferguson, and that was prior to the election. And of course, she wanted a gotcha moment out of me, and she didn't get it. And of course, it ended up, a positive interview for myself. Well, she got bagged out by the woke. Why did you have her on? Why did you talk to her? This is the ABC. So they have a go at her for having me on to give me a platform. So, we've got to call this out, Rob. Otherwise, people back away. They have, that many people these days don't have a backbone and don't stand up to the bullying, what's going on. What sort of country do we want to live in? That's why I push back all the time and set a standard here that you're not going to let these bullies get away with whatever they want, their ideology, their wokeness, whatever they want, cancel culture and the whole lot of it. So I'm saying no, and I'll keep standing my ground with these things.
I agree with that. And who gets to decide who can and can't be platformed? I mean, Channel 9 still hasn't declared exactly why they sacked Karl Stefanovic. Now, I think it was because of the Mad Witches, but look, it wasn't a great interview. He didn't challenge. He didn't really have a discussion. But I don't think someone should be sacked for interviewing someone, no matter who it is.
So whose decision is it what Karl should be asking? What questions he should be asking?
You know what? I'm talking from a personal point of view.
Program. Okay, but you're speaking as a media person. You might have expected that. That's not how Karl wanted to do the interview. He's doing his interviews to actually so the public will relate to him and the questions that he asks.
Yep.
Why do you always have to, follow the cue of what other media personalities everyone expect? And you haven't asked tough questions, so you shouldn't be there. It's not your program. Run your program the way that you want to. Karl set up his own program and has the right to run it and ask questions that suits him.
I agree with that. I just look at it from a personal point of view about what I expect from Karl and the way the interview was conducted. It's as a critic, as a punter, it just didn't appeal to me. But I didn't have a problem with him doing the interview. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I don't have a problem with him doing the interview as well. And this is where we got the public will make up their own minds.
Yes. Now, let me play you a clip, and I hope your hand can hold out for a few more minutes holding that bloody phone. Let me play you a clip from your National Press Club address that I think perfectly sums up your feelings about the media. Have a look at this.
Remember this, I don't answer to the media. I answer to the Australian people.
So true. So true. But isn't the media there on behalf of the people? Isn't it their job to hold people like yourself, people in power, to account?
Rob, I totally agree with you. But when you get kicked in the guts all the time and from the biased media, I've been a guest speaker at the universities speaking directly to the media. And I said to them, I don't ask anything of you other than report the truth, all right? Because that will impact my life, where I go, whether it's in politics. And that time I wasn't in politics, so, whatever I do. And I said, keep your bias to yourself, just report the facts. And that's what I asked of them. And I said, if these editors want to change your story and it's not true, stand up to them. And I'll tell you why I said that. I was on a campaign trail and I actually went up and the media were all in tow. And I went up to a door and I knocked on the door. And the woman opened it up and she said, oh, Pauline, I'd love to talk to you. But she said, I don't want to be photographed with the media out there. So she said, she took the paper that I had and she closed the door. Well, the media knew that, right? They confirmed with me why she wouldn't come out and be photographed and talk to me. Do you know the next day, the front page newspaper, they showed a full picture of me on the steps and the door was shut in my face. And that's a story they put across. So
I remember that.
You have to understand what I've been through with the media, the lies, the spins, the misrepresentation. And this is why when I got in 1996, what the ABC did to me, I banned them for 9 months from being allowed into any of my meetings. I have reasons for doing this. Yes, the media has a place in all this to get the truth out to the people, but make sure it's the truth, not your bias. And a lot of these people do not like the rise of One Nation and they're terrified of it. And I'm sick and tired of the lies and spin.
So where does that leave you on choosing who can and can't get into a press conference? When you're PM, it's sort of expected that you'll let. I said when you're PM. Did you hear that?
Yes, I know. Look, that went over the top of my head. Okay, that went
It
here.
just
So I'm
came out, Pauline.
yeah,
But
right.
if you're
Well,
PM, will you have an
yeah.
open policy? That's sort of the expected norm. Would you have an open policy just to allow all media in? I
Well,
mean, what do you
that's all
do?
hypothetical. All right, that's all hypothetical.
Sure.
But yes, so we will have look. Some of the ABC turn up there when it's in a media scrum and all the rest of it, so they turn up, and yes, I deal with that. But if you think you're going to get a foot in the door with me, and if I know that you've done a story that is not the truth, you purposely have twisted my words and what I stand for, well, I'll deal with that. But it's a two-way street. You want something from me, you want the truth from me. Well, I want the truth from you. So I'm asking no more than that. Just give
Fair
me a
enough.
fair go, like every other Australian. Just give me a fair go.
I've got two quick questions and then I'll let your hand have a rest. Karl Sandilands said in an interview he's been consulting you. That was denied by One Nation. Can you clear this up for me? Have you been speaking with Karl, and if so, what about?
Had meetings with Karl. I caught up with him when he lost his job. I sent him a text and I said, "Karl, you okay?" Because he was very good to me on his program. He had me in the
Yes.
studio there, and over a period of time, I've actually got to know Kyle. He was at a function that I attended, so there's no problem there. I don't have a problem with saying, that I've associate with Kyle and I say
No,
hello.
it wasn't about
No.
association. It was about him giving you advice.
I'm just trying to think of what advice he gave me.
He might have been talking it up, Pauline. He might have been talking it up.
Yeah, look, he has these opinions about the way the country's going, and he's very concerned about it. He's got a child himself now.
Yeah.
He, like many other people, are worried about the future of the country and where it's going. So he's no different to any Australian.
Every Australian. He's like every
Correct.
Australian. Finally,
Correct.
the Karl Stefanovic episode. How'd you get your hands on that to re-upload it?
The one with who?
The one
Tommy
that was
Robinson?
cancelled with Tommy Robinson. Karl takes it down, you re-upload it. There it is. We all got to see it.
Hey, listen, mate, I'll tell you something. I leave the technology to all to everyone else. Don't ask me how to do it. I wouldn't have a clue. I stick with what I know. And you know what? I know how to run the country better than I do with technology and uploading videos.
Fair enough. Pauline, I have laughed more than I expected in this interview. You've been very generous. Oh my God, we've been going 30 minutes and you've been holding up a phone that time. It was meant to be a 15-minute interview. You are a force of nature. Happy Tipsy Thursday. Congratulations. And if you get in
Thank
power,
you.
I hope you do the right thing by Australia.
Well, there's a guarantee. I always try and stick with my word. If I tell you something, then I stick by it. And that's my background. That's my breeding. That's where my parents taught me that. And people would expect no less of me. So I can tell you what, I won't be an Albanese. And that's why I started up Fire the Liar. I'm not a liar.
Good on you, Pauline. Thank you for joining us on
Thanks,
McKnight
Rob.
Tonight.
Bye.